Meet the Robshaws. Brandon, Rochelle, Miranda, Ros and Fred. They've been back in time before and experienced the transformation in our diets from the 1950s to the 1990s.
That is just amazing. Look at them.
Now they're travelling further back in time, to the first half of the 20th century, to discover how changes in the food we ate...
Oh, my good God. Is it brains?
...the way it was served and how it was cooked...
Yes, I'm cooking the pudding in the soup. Why?
...helped change the course of history. Starting in the 1900s...
Oh, my goodness!
This Victorian house will be their time machine.
What is that? It looks like a giant hand grenade.
Fast-forwarding them through a new year each day.
1941, everyone.
From strict etiquette...
I might practice my bowing.
...to new fads and flavours.
Oh.
It's not that bad, Dad!
From far too much...
I think I've got the meat sweats.
...to not enough.
Doesn't look like a fried egg. No! Can we eat that? No.
As they discover how a revolution in our eating habits helped create the modern family. Last time, the Robshaws experienced the feast...
That's amazing.
...and famine...
You probably need a hacksaw.
...of the turbulent 1910s.
It feels like the war's really hitting home now. It feels like it's starting to bite.
This time, the Robshaws enter a thoroughly modern decade.
I thought you might appreciate Bucks Fizz.
Oh, thanks very much indeed.
Give you a little bit of a lift.
As they race through the roaring 20s.
Go forward.
It's a new decade for the Robshaws, the 1920s, and the house has been brought right up to date. The kitchen is leaner, brighter and more modern. What was a parlour is now a stylish dining room. And the formality of previous decades has been replaced by a fashionable family sitting room, now at the front of the house. Social historian Polly Russell and I are back to discover how the 1920s quest for modernity has transformed the house. So, it's not as cluttered as it was with pots and pans and mangles and bits and pieces, is it?
Yeah, it's much more sort of streamlined, an emphasis on hygiene, simplicity, ergonomically organised. That's because this is the period where we see the emergence of the modern housewife. She's going to have to produce the food for the family and be in charge. And there were new technologies coming in, things that start to make managing the kitchen easier. But there's one thing that really helps the housewife in this period, and we're going to find that in the larder.
So, a lot of tinned food, is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, we've had tinned food before, but what you see through this decade is a huge increase in the volume of tinned food consumed, but also the variety of both imported from all around the world, but also produced in Britain. And for the housewife who now doesn't have a servant, this is an absolute godsend. This is a modern way of cooking.
In previous decades, Rochelle relied on Debbie, the family's maid-of-all-work, to do the cooking. But the war brought her new opportunities, and like many of the women who left domestic service at this time, she won't be returning, leaving Rochelle in charge. The impact of the war was felt elsewhere too. Keen to forget the horrors of the past, Britain in 1920 was a nation focused on the future. With rapidly advancing technology and a loosening of social attitudes, a thirst for all that was new would define this decade. And historical data shows that the food we ate was no exception.
What you start to see is much more variety coming into the diet. And we can see this in particular in this category of other food, which actually doubles from the beginning of the century to the end of this decade. Things like canned food, ice cream, jarred food, sort of prepared food, manufactured food. Because women are less likely to have servants, of course, it's no surprise, perhaps, that you see an increase on reliance on manufactured goods.
And what about booze? We know this is the decade of the cocktail, the decade of the party. The Robshaws have got their own very impressive drinks trolley. Is that reflected in the survey?
What you see straight after the war is this really quite extraordinary spike in alcohol consumption for a few years, as though people are somehow embracing something new, a kind of loosening up of culture happens. But then afterwards, you do see a sort of trailing off of alcohol consumption.
Into a really bad period of hangover. It's time for the Robshaws to step back to the 1920s.
From the 1920s, I'm looking for fun, I'm looking for social liberation. You've got jazz and you've got cocktails, parties.
I would be very happy to accept domestic help, but I imagine myself flapping about in the kitchen rather than out at nightclubs.
Wow.
This is really nice, isn't it?
This is a completely different vibe, isn't it?
This is the best thing ever.
Nice.
And it's the first time we've had colour in the kitchen.
Yes.
Whoa.
There's Bisto down there.
Look. Oh, yeah, and this bird's custard.
Heinz, ketchup,
Lipton's.
sauce. Everything is packaged and branded.
There's loads of stuff that is going now, 100 years later. It's still around, isn't it? Look, it's addressed to us.
Dear Robshaw family, welcome to the 1920s. Debbie, your maid, will not be returning.
Oh, I felt a little shiver when you said that.
So, Rochelle, you will be in charge of all cooking, cleaning and maintaining the family home.
Oh, enjoy yourselves.
All right, well, let's go and get on with it.
Whoa.
Oh, this is lovely, isn't it?
Oh, this is just
is so
fantastic.
beautiful.
This is gorgeous. I can't believe it. It does make me want to do that.
It's the first electric light.
This is fantastic. You can just walk into a room, flick a switch, and it's illuminated. It's marvellous. The only word I can think of is modern. It looks so modern.
In 1920, thousands of British homes were transformed by electric power and lighting. By the end of the decade, a fifth of all households were on the new national grid. While the rest of the family enjoy the comforts of their modern living room, Rochelle is getting to grips with her new role.
Well, I think for the housewives sort of post-war, they would need to go back to basics, and they might be very good at telling their staff what to do, but actually doing it themselves might be sort of a different sort of kettle of fish.
Luckily for middle-class women, the 1920s saw the publication of a range of new practical guides. Particularly popular was the Daily Mail cookery book by Mrs. C.M. Peel, which included special labour-saving recipes for servantless women.
These potatoes are going to go in the pot. I'm now going to put the pot in the pot.
Rochelle's making a meal in which all three courses are cooked together. Vegetable soup, potatoes, steamed herrings, and jam roly-poly. The soup is made in the big pot, then the other dishes are cooked in smaller pots in the soup, and the fish is steamed on top.
I like baking. I just wish Debbie was here. I might have to go off and find her and beg her to come back.
No longer in service with the Robshaws, Debbie is looking for a new job.
Businessman, bookkeeper, soldier, mechanic, motor driver.
As men returned from the First World War, the government had passed an act encouraging employers to dismiss women from the jobs they'd taken up in wartime. By 1920, unemployment was high, but like many former maids, Debbie doesn't want to return to domestic service.
Housekeeper, working cook. Most of the jobs are just domestic help. Obviously, all the rest is for men. I mean, once you've felt a bit of freedom being a land girl, you don't really want to go back to being a servant. You want to carry on doing new things and, I don't know, make life a bit better for yourself. You don't want to, like, regress.
While Debbie's on the hunt for a new job, Rochelle's getting used to hers as a housewife.
I actually have never made a jam roly-poly. I think this looks absolutely horrible. What's worrying me, if I roll it all the way through, whether the tea towel gets caught up in the roll of it. Oh, God, it's all just sticking to the... This is... I feel like crying. Oh, God, it's just a complete disaster. I don't think I'm going to use a cloth because it's just more trouble than it's worth.
And the last part of Rochelle's one-pot meal, fresh herring.
Why would you want to spend your afternoon doing this? There's like a drinks cabinet in the other room.
They're steamed on a lid on top of the pot.
In the unlikely event that that will cook, we will have some supper.
And without a maid, middle-class daughters were expected to pitch in.
Miranda, Ros, come and help with the soup.
My God, are you cooking the pudding in the soup?
Yes, I'm cooking the pudding in the soup.
Why?
Won't the pudding smell of soup? Taste of soup?
Probably, yes.
Well, that's horrible. I was really looking forward to that dessert, and now I'm not.
Oh, well, you won't know it once it's out of the pot.
No, but it's in the same place as it.
It will taste.
It's like an oven. You can put two things in an oven, can't you?
That's true.
Anyway, should we take that in?
Yeah.
This soup has been cooked in a pot.
Was it?
Yes.
So it was a little bit tasteless.
Thank you, darling. Are you ready for your next course?
I certainly am. Whoa.
Oh, wow.
That looks fantastic. Was this in the pot as well?
It was steamed on top of the
So the
pot.
fish was steamed on top of the pot?
Yeah.
Is it labour-saving or is it actually hard work doing that?
I can't see how it's labour-saving.
Less washing up at the end of it?
No, it's not less washing up because within the pot you have two more pots.
Last to come out of the pot is the roly-poly pudding.
I peep at this and it is actually looking kind of like a pudding. It's possible it's still inedible, but at least it looks like it's done something.
Here comes the pudding.
That looks nice.
Let's taste it. Let's give it the taste test.
It definitely doesn't taste of herring.
It doesn't taste of herring. It tastes of jam and pudding. Well done, Rochelle. That was really nice.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to the 20s.
I feel disappointed that my mum is back in the kitchen. I mean, it's not that I didn't expect it, but you know, like Debbie's gone and like somebody had to take that place, and unfortunately that fell solely to my mum.
Well, here we are in 1920. And my first impression is that this is really going to be a happening decade. I've got a real sense of kind of movement and change and going forwards. I think, in a way, the 20s, it feels like the first modern decade.
It's a new day for the Robshaws. And that means a new year. While Rochelle cooks up boiled eggs and toast for breakfast,
Love that sound.
Brandon's embracing a new invention.
Listen to this. That's another nice sound, isn't it, that? Fizzing of the bubbles.
The 1920s saw a spike in alcohol consumption after dropping off in the war due to restrictions on grain and sugar. And in 1921, the bartender of London's glamorous Bucks Club came up with a brand new concoction for those who wanted to start their day with something stronger than tea.
Miranda, would you like a Bucks Fizz? Cheers. Hi, darling. Look what I've got. Thought you might appreciate a Bucks Fizz.
Oh, thanks very much
Give you a
indeed.
little bit of a lift.
Yeah, it certainly will.
Cheers.
Thanks for lifting me off the floor.
This is any...
It's got a tiny amount of orange juice in it.
A little bit of orange. Oh, looks good to me.
Looks delicious.
I mean, it seems ridiculously decadent, doesn't it, that we're actually having Bucks Fizz for breakfast.
Well, I'm enjoying this breakfast. I think it's a massive treat to have Bucks Fizz for breakfast.
To really get them in the swing of the 1920s, I've planned a special event for the Robshaws.
I've got a little letter from Giles here. Dear Robshaw family, tonight we're bringing the 1920s jazz scene to your home.
Oh, good.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
You'll be hosting a cocktail party with food and drinks typically served at the jazz clubs at the time.
Yeah, my heart's beating really fast.
Really?
Sounds great, though.
That sounds brilliant, doesn't it?
No 20s cocktail party would be complete without a selection of canapés. Rochelle is making egg mayonnaise sandwiches, tomato, salmon paste, and smoked mackerel canapés.
I think Miranda, really, and her friends will probably skip the sandwiches and go straight for the cocktails.
Hi, what are you making?
Did our creme sandwich.
Is that egg mayonnaise sandwich?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. That is the food menu?
Yeah, that's it. There's 4 canapés.
And that is the cocktail menu?
Yeah, 14 cocktails.
It's like all drink and a few little nibbles, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm off to meet Giles.
Right.
And I'm going to learn how to make cocktails.
Right, we better come back in time then. Enjoy yourself.
I'll see you at the party.
Right.
Bye.
I like a bourbon, I like a scotch.
In the 1920s, as Britain embraced all things modern, alcohol was no exception. And new American-style cocktails became the drinks for anyone keen to show they were up to the minute. So I'm meeting Brandon at the Bloomsbury Ballroom Bar to research tonight's menu.
Giles, good to see you.
How are you?
Great.
I like a dark Jamaica rum. I drink that stuff until the sun goes down.
You're probably wondering why you're here.
Yes, I am.
Because I'm going to teach you about cocktails. It's 1921, the war is over, and now there is nothing to do but drink.
OK, well, let's drink.
We're starting with a gimlet, 1 part lime juice to 4 parts gin. Supposedly named after a British Navy doctor who gave it to sailors to prevent them from getting scurvy.
There we go.
Here we go.
Look at that, isn't that elegant?
Yes,
Isn't that...
so elegant.
I see, I think that's beautiful.
That is. That is.
Couldn't you just dive in?
It seems like a decadent thing to do, doesn't it? Just be sitting around in a bar drinking cocktail after cocktail. Well, what's next?
We could have something like a bit between the sheets.
Absolutely.
I like a bourbon, I like a scotch.
As new bars and gentlemen's clubs opened up in Britain's cities and a simple whiskey, wine or port became passé, instead it was all about mixed spirits and a racy name.
Brandy, white rum, Cointreau and some sort of healthy fruit. Now that's naughty.
That's naughty. Even the name of this cocktail, Between the Sheets, that sounds a bit sort of saucy, wouldn't it? I mean, you wouldn't have had that in the Edwardian era.
Gosh,
people would have been
absolutely
shocked
not.
by that.
They would have been entirely shocked.
So they go on crackers, so that's OK.
While Brandon brushes up on his cocktails, Rochelle's finishing off the canapés. Often salty or spicy to encourage guests to consume more drinks.
Cocktails are the star attraction. So basically the canapé meal is kind of a little side act in the corner.
Back in the bar, we're on our 3rd cocktail. A Bloody Mary.
That's a salty Bloody Mary.
It's salty.
So, Fabio, there are so many recipes for a Bloody Mary. What's yours?
It's, a pinch of salt, pepper, Tabasco, Worcestershire sauce, and equal parts tomato juice and vodka.
Apparently, the true defining Bloody Mary has a slice of lemon, and the celery came later. Finally, a mint julep. Bourbon, sugar, and mint.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mint julep.
It's like brushing your teeth and then gargling with Jack Daniels. Do you think you could make one of these yourself?
I might give it a try. I like the fact that not only do you get lots of whiskey inside you, but it kind of freshens your breath at the same time.
I just drank the first one a bit too fast and I've got minor brain freeze. This is how the history of cocktails gets written, by people like you and me who don't know anything and have had a couple of drinks.
I drink that stuff until the morning comes.
After a long afternoon of complex research, Brandon's picked up something special for Rochelle.
Hello.
Hello, Brandon.
I'm back.
Are you back?
Guess what I've got?
Well, yeah, put it behind your back.
I've got chocolate
Wow.
for you.
That's very nice. What have you done?
Pleasure.
Thanks to new manufacturing technology, Cadbury's Milk Tray made individual chocolates affordable for any middle-class husband who might feel he needed to make things up to his wife. But now it's party time.
Wow.
And I've arranged a special surprise for tonight, a live Dixieland trio to get the evening going with the very latest American music. Jazz. Jazz was fast and furious, nothing like the classical and music hall favourites of previous decades.
That's quite a strong one. And who wants some?
Nice. Yes.
As well as Miranda and Ros's friends, I've invited Leah Wood, singer and daughter to rock and roll star Ronnie Wood, to help the Robshaws understand how music fueled the modernism of the 20s.
People were like, whoa, this is such great new music and it's so expressive. There was nothing else like that until that came in. So really we've got them to thank, not you guys personally, you know what I mean? We've got them to thank for bringing that over and creating a whole new world of music and freedom and fashion and all of that.
It just feels like a very kind of like freeing age, and like just thinking back to the previous decades where it's been very restricted, and if we had free time it would have been spent with family, like my mum and my sister kind of like in the parlour knitting, and now like to the soundtrack of jazz. Having friends around and drinking cocktails just feels like a completely different vibe.
Yay! Did you make these?
I did make them. Well, yeah, I did. That is mackerel. That is tomato and egg.
We had this cocktail party and we didn't sit down to eat. Canapes being passed around, glasses of cocktails around. I mean, I suppose that after the war, if you were fortunate enough to be able to afford it, you'd actually just want to drink and forget your cares. You want to have a good time, you want to have parties, you want to drink, you want to let your hair down. And it just seems to have created such a completely different world from that rather kind of stiff, buttoned-up world of the earlier couple of decades in the century.
The 20s feels exciting. I feel like I'm moving very fast, and this kind of dress even, and this kind of behaviour would have been completely unthinkable in the Edwardian era.
It's 1922, and there's a new magazine on Britain's newsstands aimed directly at middle-class women like Rochelle.
The Model Housewife, Secrets of Her Success by Viscountess Gladstone. The best time to pluck poultry is when the bird is newly killed and before the flesh has time to stiffen. Now, I wouldn't have known that. It's really interesting to have a magazine like Good Housekeeping. It's like somebody talking to you. You know, the instruction, especially from sort of a woman who is like a viscountess, would make you think, oh, she's giving me her knowledge.
Like, on some level, we have a great deal of independence. We can have cocktail parties, go to nightclubs, get a university degree, but also an expectation that you will have to be a kind of wife and mother and housekeeper.
As well as innovative publications, there's also something new in Britain's shops, and Rochelle's off to stock up. The 20s saw an explosion in the variety of tinned produce, sold as a safe and hygienic method of preserving almost any food. At the start of the decade, Britain had 3 canning factories. By 1929, there were 80.
Hi. Hi.
Hiya.
I think I know you from somewhere.
I think I know you as well. It's nice to see you.
You too. You've got yourself a job.
Yeah.
That's absolutely...
I'm moving up in the world.
That's absolutely fantastic.
Debbie's found a job in a local shop, earning much more than she could as a maid.
Do you want to come back?
Oh, are you missing me?
We're missing you very much. You definitely don't want to come back.
OK, 2 tins of potatoes, 2 tins of marrow-fat peas, 6 tins of salmon and some bird's custard.
Thank you.
I tell you what, Debbie, if I manage to get home with all these tins, I'll make a nice dinner and think of you.
Oh, good luck.
OK,
Bye.
bye. I'm happy she's not back in service. It would be lovely if she wanted to come back, but she doesn't, and that time has passed.
Rochelle's back with enough tins to make an entire meal. All she has to do is open them.
It's actually quite hard work. Oh, if you can open the can, you can open the world.
Dinner today is salmon with potatoes, peas and carrots, and for dessert, tinned peaches with powdered custard.
You have to kind of go out shopping early and then start opening your cans early if you want to eat. They fill me with a sense of anxiety because if you can't get into it, you're stuck. I think it's probably easier to peel a potato than to open a can.
While Rochelle grapples with cutting-edge 1920s technology, Fred's found a convenience food that's a bit easier to open. Smith's Salt and Shake crisps. Mr. and Mrs. Smith made and sold their new snack from a garage in North London, selling 1,000 packets a week. By the end of the decade, they'd opened 7 factories and created a nation of crisp lovers. We now consume 6 billion bags a year. Rochelle's 20s ready meal has taken minutes to cook. Nothing like the hours Debbie spent preparing elaborate feasts in their Edwardian kitchen.
It's fairly no frills. It's supposed to make everything a lot easier, that everything is ready, peeled and prepared and all ready for you. It's not exactly cookery, so it's just cannery. Here we go. Want some bread?
Yeah, love some bread. So this is all out of tins, is it? Except for the bread, I suppose.
Yeah, everything's out of a tin. I have no fear of the can opener.
Well, you're an expert at that now, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I wasn't an expert, but I'm proficient. If it was on levels, I'd probably be on level 3 now.
Right.
What's the top level?
5 would be advanced can opening. But I suppose somebody getting this might have thought, I'm going to have salmon, like what my maid made me. But when it actually comes out, we've got this salmon that is not fish shape. Yeah, it's been in a tin.
Yeah. I don't know if the tinned vegetables work quite so well. So this is all stuff you bought at the shops?
Yeah, but you'll never guess who was over the counter. It was Debbie.
Was it Debbie?
No way! Yes, way.
Was it?
Way. Yeah.
Was she surprised to see you?
She was surprised to see me.
Were you surprised to see her?
I was extremely surprised to see her.
You should invite her around for dinner.
I think she's busy.
Well, what do people think about having a meal all out of tins?
Been quite nice.
But would you serve this to guests?
No.
Why not?
It's like sort of saying, oh, I really fancy noodles tonight, and then them giving you a pot noodle.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I didn't dislike the canned dinner. It's not the type of food that Debbie would have served. And if she was still with us, we probably wouldn't be eating an entirely canned meal.
It's 1923. Ros and Fred have come to the park to find a brand new phenomenon, the ice cream man. In the early 1920s, Walls was a small meat company. They noticed that sales of pies and sausage rolls dropped dramatically in the summer months. So to help profits, they expanded into ice cream. And in 1923, they introduced the world's first ever ice cream tricycle, allowing them to take freshly made blocks and tubs directly to the people.
Can I please have an ice cream?
You certainly can. Thank you.
Thank you.
You enjoying your ice cream?
Good.
What do you like about it?
I like that it's ice cream.
Back at the house, Rochelle's discovering a new phenomenon of her own.
I've sent you a little something to help you learn a prized housewife skill, baking. Good luck, Giles.
To help the fledgling housewife get used to a kitchen without servants, the cooperative grocer published a series of recipe cards given away in cigarette packets.
I would have taken out this little card and it would have had a nice little recipe on the back. And then I could have gone into the co-op and bought all my produce. It's quite a good idea. Canny bit of advertising.
The recipe for coconut pyramids couldn't be more simple. 1/2 pound of desiccated coconut and condensed milk.
It's not too difficult, so any housewife who was a little bit nervous would be best starting off with this one, I reckon. Then you have to get 2 forks together and somehow create a pyramid using forks, which is obviously not what the ancient Egyptians did. Well, that's not very good, is it? I've forgotten what a pyramid looks like.
But everyone in the 20s would have known. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 by British archaeologist Howard Carter captured the world's imagination and sparked a mania for all things Egyptian. Music, art and culture all fell under the spell of Egyptomania, and baking was no exception.
It's very hot in the desert. Yeah, they do look a bit well done. I'm hoping my family will be polite and accept them for what they are.
Oh. What are these?
They're coconut pyramids. They've got
They're a bit burnt.
No, they are very sort of well
Singed.
done.
They're caramelised.
Caramelised. Would you like one?
Yes, please.
Do you want to put them down?
All right.
Put them down, and then people can just help themselves in. These are nice. They're good.
I think they're nice with the caramelised topping.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Tea really tastes good when you just had a cake.
Have another one then.
All right, don't mind if I do. They were delicious. They tasted great. And in fact, we all ate them and wanted more, didn't we? So.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the presentation is a 5.63.
It's 1924. This year saw the arrival of Kellogg's cornflakes from America. The company opened its first factory in the UK, and our love affair with the convenience of breakfast cereals truly took off.
There's no preparation. All I have to do is tip it out of the box and into the bowl. At the time, it was probably cutting-edge cereal.
They would have seemed very different, wouldn't they, from toast and marmalade or boiled eggs?
I never eat cornflakes. No, never ever eat them. Yeah. But if you'd never had anything like this before, it would feel like a completely different type of breakfast, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Would this keep you going all day at the office?
Not sure about that. I think it'll get you to the station, all right.
Have to get like a butty or something.
Cornflakes aren't the only new arrival in the house. Brandon's taken delivery of some state-of-the-art technology. The 1920s was a decade of breakthroughs. New radio technology meant that live broadcasts could be heard in the homes of ordinary British families for the very first time. And a brand new corporation had been formed, the BBC.
It must have kind of helped British people to think of themselves as more of a nation, because everybody could be listening to the same thing at the same time. It must have seemed that we were rushing into the future at that time.
And Rochelle's got her hands on her own technological innovation, Pyrex.
The experienced housekeeper or the young wife have only to become acquainted with the possibilities of Pyrex to refuse to return to the drudgery of old-fashioned methods.
Initially imported from the United States, by 1924 it was being produced in Britain. The oven-proof glassware was marketed directly at housewives keen to find culinary shortcuts.
This is modern. In this, I can cook, I can put it in the oven, take it out of the oven, and then I can bring it to the table. And it's transparent. Imagine imagine that? Actually seeing your food sort of cook all the way through.
Well, now you have no excuse if it goes wrong.
Well, I would have an excuse if it goes wrong.
What would it be?
Oh, I would, yeah, yeah.
Rochelle is preparing a 3-course meal, following recipes from the Pyrex Modern Cookery book. Ham and potato hot pot, celery hot pot, and cabinet pudding. The dishes spread heat more evenly, helping to reduce cooking time. And Pyrex's modern, forward-thinking design meant housewives could bring them straight to the table, doing away with separate serving dishes altogether.
Now everything is visible. It just gives a kind of like a wow factor to the hot pot.
They look a bit burnt now, so you can't even see it.
It's not burnt. It is the lid of the Pyrex pot. See? Look, it goes brown. They don't tell you that, do they?
What big chunks of ham?
They look good to me.
Thank you.
People don't get rid of their Pyrex.
They don't. They don't.
They absolutely
They
don't.
keep it for decades.
Yeah, they do. Pyrex is not just sort of here today, gone tomorrow.
No.
It's not like a fad. It's absolutely endured, hasn't it? Do you want some?
Yeah. Oh, it smells nice. I can smell the kind of the custardy smell.
Oh, it's hot, isn't it? God, these Pyrex dishes really do hold the heat, don't they?
Do you remember that sweet sauce that Debbie made?
Yeah.
That's what this needs.
It was raspberry and port.
I'm supposed to have jam sauce, I forgot.
Oh.
Sorry. No, sorry. I'm just sorry. Just said you've got to serve it with jam.
For lunch, we had very nice casserole dishes that Rochelle made using the new Pyrex cookware. Life in the kitchen is getting a bit easier for Rochelle. The equipment is getting more modern. It still seems that, you know, she is somewhat confined to the kitchen.
The Robshaws are halfway through the decade, and bars and nightclubs in Britain's cities are thriving. New licensing laws mean they can stay open later, as long as they offer something to eat alongside the dancing and champagne. I'm sending Miranda and Ros to the Bloomsbury Ballroom to sample a 20s night out with Strictly's James and Ola Jordan.
Cheers.
Cheers.
But James and Ola are here for one reason only.
OK, guys, let's go in Charleston. When we do the Charleston step here, the reason why the feet come in and out like this, not only because it looks nice, but it's about the ladies' modesty. The skirts would be getting shorter and shorter in the 20s, you know, a little bit more zhuzh like that.
Free.
Yeah, a bit more free. OK, we're going to do the basic box step first of all, where we cross over with our left leg. OK, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep doing that. 1, 2, 3, step, tap, step, tap, step, tap. And now we start to add the swivel. Now, if you can, start to put the arms in. So the arm goes this way and then this way. So each time it goes there. It's hard, isn't it?
It's hard.
The Charleston was as riotous, modern and fast-paced as the young people doing it, and it certainly couldn't be done in a corset.
OK, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go forward. Side. Circle.
But nightclubs weren't the only places to try something new. Aspiring middle-class housewives had their own group of trendsetters to follow in the 20s. Virginia Woolf and her Bloomsbury set. As well as transforming literature, their cosmopolitan palettes were also very influential. Rochelle's preparing a dinner party based on a menu cooked by fashionable painter Dora Carrington.
If Virginia Woolf and her Bloomsbury set wanted to write a cookbook, they would probably put in a recipe like this. Today, we have that same fascination with groups of people who we perceive as being better than us, who have a better lifestyle than us.
Catering to the exotic tastes of the group, she's making sardines on toast, chicken with fennel and tomato, risotto with almonds and pimentos, and creme brulee.
It's kind of an expensive menu. I mean, you've got something like fennel and saffron, which is an expensive spice to add in. It tastes different. It doesn't taste like roast beef and Yorkshire pudding.
Meanwhile, the girls perfect their moves.
Guys, could you come up as partners, please? Thank you. These are your partners. We're going to try a lift. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, in you come and jump. Around the back. Kick the legs. We turn. And put the girls down.
There we go.
Easy.
Thanks.
OK, guys. 5, 6, 7, 8.
I can't imagine our parents coming out to dance with us. Previously, you have been very kind of restricted in terms of morality and like what you're allowed to do. It's kind of flirtatious. It's kind of got this like edge to it and this sort of cheekiness, and like it's really easy to see why it appealed to young women.
Cheers, everybody. Here's to 1925.
Back at the house, the guests have arrived for Rochelle and Brandon's Bloomsbury-inspired dinner party.
Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Virginia Woolf had Nellie, her cook, so Virginia didn't have to do any cooking, so all she had to do was just sit about writing her books.
Let's toast Nellie. Raise your glass to toast Nellie.
Yeah. And Rochelle. And Virginia.
Those are excellent carrots.
I do really like it.
I think this is really good. And now it's possible to get saffron and garlic and parmesan. Oh la la. What have we got here?
This is a risotto.
Yeah, let's see. Very Italian.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Doesn't that look delicious?
It does feel like a very, very modern decade. And to be sit about having the luxury to sit and chat. And would I give this up easily? No. No, siree.
No.
Creme brulee, do you like them?
Well done.
I like them well done.
What do you think Virginia would say about this?
Oh, Nelly.
She'd say,
It's 1926, and Britain's economy is faltering. Demand for British coal was falling, and miners were threatened with a cut in pay and longer working hours. A miners' dispute escalated, and Britain experienced its first and only general strike as thousands of workers came out in solidarity.
So the headline I've got here in the British Gazette is First Day of Great Strike. This is May the 5th, 1926. And the line they're taking is basically that people just carry on regardless with true British determination. Londoners trek to work. On foot, squeezed into cars, standing in vans, riding pillion, London came yesterday morning doggedly and cheerfully to work.
The printers were also on strike, and for many, the only news available was an emergency newspaper published by the government.
You're not going to get a balanced picture if there's only one newspaper publishing that's come out in defiance of the strike. It is a sign of how divided the nation was.
The strike reflected Britain's weak economic position as it struggled to emerge from post-war recession. In an attempt to boost Britain's economy, a new government initiative encouraged people to buy empire. Doing their patriotic bit, Brandon and Rochelle are off out for a colonial lunch.
Thank you. Hello, Polly.
Oh, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Hey, welcome. I'm thrilled you're here. In 1926, take a seat, come and join me. We're here in this fabulous restaurant. It was opened in 1926 by a man called Edward Palmer and an Indian princess. So he had this Anglo-Indian heritage. Edward Palmer brought over Indian cooks and Indian waiters so that the sort of look of this place would have been very authentic and so that it felt like you were having a taste of India.
You can imagine that you're in some kind of gentleman's club in Calcutta sitting here.
And I think that's why Veeraswamy, setting this up in 1926 is a really sort of savvy move, sort of capitalising on Britain's relationship with India. And I think that people would have been curious and also would have wanted to have shown their sort of sophistication of being open-minded.
Previously, Indian restaurants had mainly catered to their own immigrant community. But Veeraswamy, with its Anglo-Asian ownership, was aimed at middle-class white Britons keen to support Britain's empire and taste the flavours of the Raj.
What I've got here is this menu, which is fantastic because this menu shows us what was being served in this restaurant in 1926. I've taken the liberty of ordering for you.
While Brandon tries a 20s-style curry, Rochelle is having cod in parsley sauce.
Yours looks a lot more interesting than my bit of fish and parsley sauce. It's kind of like a gendered menu. It's sort of like male India and female fish.
For the ladies, yes.
What this reflects is actually that it was more likely that Brandon may have spent time in India and might have been familiar with Indian food. We, as ladies, may not have been out in India, that this may have been very new to us and our palates wouldn't be used to Indian food, so that the menu had these European dishes as well, and so we're having cod and parsley sauce.
The hotter the curry you can eat, the more of a man you are, and that is true.
I think that curry must have seemed like a taste that was completely different for the middle classes, and just this whole taste of the exotic.
Cheers to Indian food, then.
Cheers, Polly.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
It's 1927, and Debbie's found a new job in one of Britain's most successful industries, employing over 200,000 people. Fish and chips. The expansion of trawler fishing, rail connections from ports to cities, and mechanised potato peeling and frying kept 35,000 fish and chip shops going. A working-class favourite, they weren't something the middle classes would have eaten in public, so Ros and Fred have been sent out to bring some back for the family.
Hello.
Can I have 5 large cods and chips, please?
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Do you feel, like, free now?
Kind of freer, yeah. Here I still get to cook, and I kind of enjoyed that bit. Like, when I was a servant, I liked to cook for you guys. It was just, like, before I was just in your house all the time, like, on my own when you guys went out. And I think that a girl in the 1920s will probably pick a job like this over servanting.
And you can feel like you're doing something, like, for yourself. You've chosen to work in a fish and chip shop, and it's not like someone said, now you have to cook this dinner, and you're like, OK.
Yeah, it is a bit like that, actually. Hi.
It was lovely to see you.
Yeah, and you. Say hello to the rest of the family.
Yeah, we will.
Bye.
In the privacy of their own homes, families like the Robshaws were happy to indulge in Britain's favourite takeaway.
I can imagine a middle-class family in 1927 having this they think it was kind of a bit of a joke. Aren't we a little bit bohemian?
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think we would have closed the curtains? Even in, like, looking like our modern lives,
Yeah.
you're slightly embarrassed about having a takeaway. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I like fish and chips. I love fish and chips.
I suppose to have fish and chips would be great because you think I don't have to cook this at all.
It also substantially cuts down on the washing up because there's no pots and pans.
Guess who we met in the fish and chip shop?
Giles.
No.
Debbie.
Yes!
So how was she? How was she doing?
She was good. She looked like she really enjoyed it. She looked really happy to see us.
Does she want to come back? Tell her I could improve her hours.
She don't want to come back, Mum.
And for dessert, there's a new sweet treat, launched in 1927.
Hey.
Yeah. Was that Jaffa cakes?
It could be. It could well be.
Now, almost 2,000 Jaffa cakes are made every minute, but they've always had a controversial status.
I was always very firm in my belief that they were biscuits, but I know that they're not. Shall I tell you how?
Yeah.
So the definition of a cake is it goes hard when it's stale and a biscuit goes soft when it's stale. Those go hard when they're stale, so they are cakes.
So they are cakes?
They are cakes.
In 1991, the matter was put to rest. They were declared to be cakes and so free of VAT.
Sweets and treats and fast food has now been more noticeable, definitely. We had the Jaffa cakes, which were not a biscuit, but they weren't a cake.
It's It's a new day, and the Robshaws are nearing the end of the decade. 1928 saw the passing of the Equal Franchise Act, finally giving all women over 21 the right to vote.
I mean, when you think 1928, I mean, that's not that long ago. Now, women were considered to be equal citizens.
250 women, many of them former activists, gathered at London's Cecil Hotel to celebrate the event and eat a commemorative victory breakfast.
It's a women power breakfast at the start of what they would hope would be a sense of them being equal to men. All right, now go away and think about your freedom.
Okay.
By laying the table. Thank you.
Rochelle is preparing the family their own victory breakfast, based on the original surviving menu from 1928.
I didn't know they did Quaker Oats back, I was a bit surprised to see them in 1928. So I suppose it's another sort of quick thing to have for breakfast.
The lavish breakfast of porridge, kippers, bacon, eggs, toast and marmalade recalled the hearty fare suffragettes served those just released from prison.
Are they wheels? They could be wheels, couldn't they?
While women's suffrage occupies the kitchen, Brandon and Fred have something else on their minds. Meccano.
That's about 2 inches, isn't it?
Yeah. As technology progressed through the 20s, the toys of the time replicated new inventions with miniature planes, boats, cars and trains.
19 of these nuts. I tell you what, this is driving me nuts.
Can we eat that?
No.
Well, I'd say this is a good hearty breakfast. Salad, a slightly unusual touch. Is that what they had at the celebration breakfast?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's great. I think it's a beautiful breakfast. I love it. Not like those, little light breakfasts of cornflakes and so on. Oh, it's good.
Well, I want a kipper. Oh.
Well, you've got something to celebrate, haven't you? You'd have had the vote because you're over 30.
Right.
Only just, obviously.
Right.
It makes a difference to these two,
Yeah.
really.
I think it would have felt like a real triumph and a real, step forward for women.
Well, here's to the Equal Franchise Act. Well done, ladies.
Go women.
Thanks very much.
So 1928 was a big, significant year for women.
At last, these big, massive barriers in the way people thought about women were finally being broken down.
This was the year where women got the vote. Just years and years and years of petitioning and protesting. I mean, the atmosphere across the country must have been, amazing.
It's 1929, and to celebrate, the Robshaws are preparing a party to mark the end of the decade. As Brandon prepares the cocktails, Miranda pours the perfect party snack introduced just this year, Twiglets.
It actually says here, for cocktail parties.
For cocktail parties? Well, they're perfect, aren't they? We've had Marmite for decades, haven't we? And it took until now for somebody to hit on the idea of putting Marmite on these little wheaty sticks.
Rochelle's in the kitchen, making a vanilla slice for tonight's party.
It's food that is fun rather than food that is for nutrition or purpose. We've kind of perfected the food that goes with the cocktail.
On a special occasion like this, as many middle-class housewives did, she's hired in some help.
Well, I'm constructing banana sandwiches.
Oh, okay.
So, a bit unusual for a cocktail party, but I just think that maybe people had a few drinks and might fancy a banana sandwich.
It actually sounds like something you'd have after a few drinks, doesn't it? Yeah, a banana sandwich.
But as the Robshaws prepare for their party, a seismic economic event this year will have wide repercussions. The Wall Street crash wiped millions off the American stock market and plunged the world into recession. Its effects wouldn't be felt yet by middle-class British families who were able to carry on regardless, in true 1920s style.
Have you seen the well-to-do upon Lennox Avenue?
Cheese puffs.
on that famous thoroughfare with their noses in the air.
Would you like a Singapore sling?
White fashion 15.
Polly and I are back to join the party and find out all about the Robshaws' Roaring Twenties.
Hello, Polly.
Hi.
Hello,
Nice
Giles.
to see you. How are you?
This all looks very exciting.
I'm just pouring out Singapore slings here. So what can I get you two? I've mixed up a dry martini already and this Singapore sling.
Dry martini, that sounds great.
A dry martini.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
How have you found the 20s, Rochelle?
Well, at the beginning of the decade, I was sort of slightly anxious because Debbie had gone, and I did think, what am I going to be doing in that kitchen? But as I sort of found out, there were cookbooks, there was sort of Good Housekeeping magazines, and it was simplified, so it was for the new housewife.
Basically, the 20s was a chap's decade.
Yes, I've got that lovely drinks trolley, all these gleaming bottles on it, and I can mix things up and add different quantities and shake it up in the shaker. It's a lovely, lovely ritual when 6 o'clock rolls around.
But it's basically a quite simple life, really, isn't it?
Coming into the kitchen at the beginning of the decade, I was quite daunted. But because of the introduction of new convenience foods, the whole process was that much simpler. It sort of spins into sort of a modern take on easier eating. As a middle-class woman in the 20s, I'd probably feel quite exhilarated by the rate of change, but at the same time, I would feel kind of like perplexed by it. Maybe possibly find sanctuary in the kitchen. It might be moving too fast for me.
I've found the 20s a massive amount of fun. There have been quite a few evenings where the main focus of the event is different types of drinks and the food is kind of like an afterthought, and I've just had a whale of a time. I really enjoyed the jazz party, the music of this era. It's been like the soundtrack to our freedom.
I think if I actually had been my age in the 20s, it would have been a really exciting decade. Learning how to charleston, that was just so brilliant, I think. It was just so much fun.
I've got to say I've enjoyed the 20s immensely. You know, I love the greater variety of the food. The cooking has got more diverse. We've got a radio set, we've got a modern record player, we have electric light. It really does feel as if we've come into the modern age.
The Robshaws began the decade drinking and partying to forget the horrors of war. They're drinking again, but this time it's to get over the woes of economic slump. Along the way, Rochelle has found that social upheaval has deprived her of her staff, and she's set to become a housekeeper for the first time. But luckily for Miranda and Ros, there is hope, it seems, of a more exciting future.
Well, I can't help feeling about the 20s, and this, of course, is with hindsight, because we know it's a period of calm in between two wars. I sometimes get a sense that there's something almost like a bit panicky, a bit feverish about all this pleasure-seeking. It's almost as if people knew what awful clouds lay on the horizon and they were just determined to enjoy themselves while they could.
Next time, the Robshaws experience the 1930s. A decade of opportunities.
Let me see if I can hear them snap, crackle and pop.
That was stopped in its tracks.
That looks like something out of a nightmare.